Okay, we are doing 2.1D lesson, number line model for subtraction. And the number line model is going to be quite a bit different than the addition number line model. This is page 24, I believe, in our lesson. So please follow along by taking notes. This starts with subtraction can be thought of as the difference or distance between 2 points. The first part says model 7 minus 2 on the number line. So I think of subtraction as using the number line. Our first point here is this 7. This is always going to be our little home. I'm going to draw a little house there. This second point is going to be where we end up. So we start at 7, we end up at 2. And in order to get back to 7, I have to think about, okay, how do I get back to 7? I have to go in this direction. Well, if I'm going to the right, that's in the positive direction. So the distance here would be 5, and the difference would be positive 5. For the second part, it says 2 minus 7. So now I'm starting at 2 because that's my first number, and I'm ending up at 7. And there are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces in between here. So the distance is 5. But if this is where I end up and I'm trying to get back home, then I'm now going in the negative direction. So my answer here will actually be negative 5, whereas my answer for the first one was positive 5. This next part says for both A and B, the distance is the absolute value of 5 or the absolute value of negative 5. Those bars there just mean absolute value, and that means whatever is inside those bars will be positive even if it's negative. So 5 and negative 5, when they come out of the absolute value, they'll both equal positive 5. How can you use a number line to know if the difference is represented with a positive or negative integer? Okay, well, the distance is literally just the distance between 2 points. So I'm going to write that it is the distance or number of spaces between 2 points. The difference is when you compare the first number to the second number and account for direction. So am I going back in the positive direction or the negative direction? Okay. So we're going to kind of see the comparison between these and the distance and difference in these problems. And for this next part, it says circle the operation you will be performing. Use the method for subtraction shown on the number line above to model the following problems. So for this first one, it says 4 minus 1. I'm going to circle this operation. And now my first number is 4, so that's my home. And then I go back to 1. So now I draw. The distance between those points is 1, 2, 3 spaces. That's the distance. And the difference is, okay, well, I ended up here and I want to go back home. I always want to go back home. So I'm going in the positive direction. So this will still be 3, and 4 minus 1 is a positive 3. This next one is negative 7 minus 1. Well, this is my operation sign. I circle that because I don't want to get confused with which is negative or positive. So my first number is negative 7. That means that's my home. My second number is a positive 1. So now this right here is the distance. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces in between there. And the difference, okay, well, I ended up here and I want to go back in this direction. So now I'm actually going in a negative direction. So my difference is now negative 8. Okay, now I'm going to again circle this operation. So this is my operation. My first number is negative 8. So this is my home. And my second number here is a negative 6. So this is where I end up. Okay. So I have 2 spaces in between those. So the distance is 2. But I now have to think, okay, which direction am I going back in? I ended up here and I'm going back this way. So I'm going in the negative direction because when we go to the left, it's the negative direction. When we go to the right, it's the positive direction. So my difference is actually a -2 here. Okay, now we're going to go on to this next page. And see if I can get this first problem up. There we go. So this first one says -3 minus -3. Well, I'm going to circle my operation. And don't forget to circle the operation so that we don't get confused here. My first number here is this -3. So this is my home. Oh wait, my second number is also -3. So I still end up there, which means that my distance is 0 and my difference is 0. I want you to try number 5 on your own. So go ahead and pause the video now. I will ask you to then input your answer. All right, so this time our operation is still subtraction. Our first number is this +6 here. So this is our home, and the second number is 8. So if I go this way, my distance is 2, and I end up here. So I have to go back in the negative direction to get back home. So my difference is -2. And if you think about that, that makes sense because I have a smaller number and I'm taking away more than I have. So I'm going to end up with a negative number. Okay, this next one is -14 minus 3. Again, I want you guys to pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, in this case, our operation is again subtraction. Our first number here is this -14, so I'm going to start right here. This is my home. And my second number is all the way over here at a +3. So now I'm going a longer way. And if I wanted to count the distance, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 is my distance. The difference is, okay, well, I end up here. I want to go back this way. So I'm going back in a negative direction, which means that my difference will be -17. Okay, this next one, 12 minus -13. Now, here is my operation sign. My first number here is 12, so this is my home. And my second number is -13, so it seems really far away. And this is my distance. And if I think about it, well, I'm going to count 13 spaces all the way up to 0. And then 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So the distance is 25. Now I have to figure out which direction am I headed in. Okay, well, I ended up here and I'm going back this way towards the positive direction. So my difference is again 25. All right. Model 8 minus 7 on the number line. Okay, so if I'm going to do 8 minus 7, that's my operation sign. I start here and I end up here. Okay, so I only have a distance of 1, and my difference is I end up here and I have to go back in the positive direction, so my difference is 1. Okay, so our difference is actually our answer. Our distance is just how many points or spaces are there in between the 2 points. Number 9 says 8 minus -7. So we're going to kind of compare these two. That's my operation now. And I still again start at 8, but now I end up all the way over here at -7. So I end up way further away. And in order to get back home, wait a minute, I'm still going in the positive direction to go back home. So now I have to figure out how many spaces in the positive direction do I go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 8 minus -7 will actually be 15. I want to show you guys that you can rewrite this in another way too. we have an 8 minus a negative 7, that's actually the same as saying 8 plus 7. Okay, that's kind of what we just did. 8 minus negative 7 is the same as 8 plus 7. Alrighty. Again, now we're circling the operation that we're going to be performing and use the method for subtraction to model the following problems to find the difference. So I want you guys to now try this first one. So go ahead and pause and try number 10. Okay, so we have to be very careful with where we point our numbers. The first number here is -3, so make sure that you plot it on the negative side and not on the positive side. And then our second number is -10, so it's over here. So now I'm finding how many spaces are between those 2 points. And to get from -3 to -7, I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces. And I end up here and I'm going back in the positive direction. So this is actually going to give me a positive 7. -3 minus -10 is going to be a positive 7. Now, this one looks really similar, right? -3 minus 10. Here's my operation. And I'm actually still starting at -3. Oh, that's -2. -3 is right here. So here's my home, and I'm going to now end up not at -10. This is why it's really important to circle the operation at positive 10. So I now end up here. So in order to get back home from where I end up, I now go in the negative direction. So from -3 to 10, I don't actually have 7 spaces anymore. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 spaces in the negative direction. So -13. This problem is kind of like saying I owe somebody $3. I borrowed $3 from you and I owe you $3. And then I borrowed $10 more from you. So now I owe you $13. I'm in debt by $13. Okay, number 12. 3 minus 10. Looks similar. It's going to come out with a different answer again. So again, circle the operation sign of subtraction. And we start now at +3. So this is our home. And we end up at a positive 10. So now I go from here to here. And the spaces between 3 and 10 is, well, I have 5 till here and 2 more. So that's 7 spaces. But I end up here and I have to go back in this direction. So this is actually going to be a -7. Okay. This problem would be like saying, I have $3 and I borrowed $10. So I now owe you $7. Actually, scratch that. This would be like saying, I have $3 and I just spent $10 on my credit card. So I now have to pay $7 more than I have. Okay. Number 13 says 14 minus 20. 14 minus 20, my operation would be right here. I would start at +14, so that's my home, and I would end up at +20. So now I'm going back from 20 to 14 in the negative direction. So I have a smaller number and I'm subtracting a bigger number. I'm going to end up with a negative number. And the number of spaces in between 14 and 20, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So this is going to be a -6. I want you guys to pause the video and try number 14. Okay, we have our operation sign circled. We start at 6 and we end up at a -16 here. So if I can't forget to draw my home, I end up all the way down here. If I were to count all the spaces, I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 22 spaces in between those numbers. 22 spaces in between those numbers. So I know my distance is going to be 22. I have to figure out if it's positive or negative. I end up here. In order to get back home, I go in this direction. So that will be in the positive direction. So that means I have a +22. Number 15, negative 15 minus negative 25. There's my operation sign. I start at negative 15, that's my home, and I end up at negative 25. So I end up here. In order to get back home, I have to go in the positive direction. So the spaces between negative 15 and negative 25, there are 10 spaces, and this is going to be in the positive direction, so it's a positive 10. Okay, this last problem's here. Circle the operation we'll be performing. Think of a number line to find the difference for each. Draw a number line if helpful. So now we don't have to draw a number line anymore, but it says draw a number line if helpful. That means you can absolutely use a number line if you like these and they're helping you. So this first one, negative 14 minus 1. Well, negative 14, and I'm taking away something else, this will end up with negative 15. If I were to draw this on the number line, I could just sketch a little number line and say, I start at negative 14, that's my home, and here's my operation sign. I end up all the way over here at 1. And the number of spaces between negative 14 and 1, well, here's 0. I have 14 here and 1 here. So that's 15. But I end up here and I have to go back this way. So it's in the negative direction. 17 says negative 13 minus negative 13. Here's my operation sign. This is actually going to be like saying negative 13 plus 13, because we have a negative and a negative. So a negative minus another negative number, that's actually going to turn into a positive number. So this is going to look like negative 13 plus 13, which we know will be 0. If I were to actually write this on the number line, negative 13 would be my home. And look, I end up at negative 13. So again, I don't move anything where my answer is going to be 0. Now 9 minus 15, I would like you guys to go ahead and try this one on your own. Okay, 9 minus 15, I have $9 and I end up spending $15. How much money do I owe pretty much? So this is going to end up as a negative number and it's going to be a negative 6. 13 minus 13. Well, we know that to be 0 because I'm starting at 13, I'm ending at 13, I don't actually go anywhere. Negative 12 minus negative 9. Well, if we were to look up here and I said a negative and a negative, that's going to be like ending up with a positive. That's the same thing down here. So this is going to be like a negative 12 plus a 9. And I have more negative numbers than I do positive. I have negative 12 and I only have positive 9. So I'm going to end up with a negative number and it's going to be a negative 3. Okay. Again, you can draw a number line if that is helpful. This last one here, 15 minus negative 8. Well, I'm going to draw a number line for this one. So if I start at 15, that's my home, and I end up at a negative 8. Well, I'm going to have kind of a lot of spaces in between there. Let's say this is 0. I'm going to have 15 plus 8 spaces. So I know 15 plus 8, that's going to get me 23. And I end up here, I have to go in this direction. So it's the positive direction. So my answer should be positive 23. And another way of thinking about this, just like in 17 and just like in 20, how a negative and a negative became a positive, that will happen here too. This would look like 15 plus 8, which would end up as 23. And I lied, this is actually our last one, number 22. It says use the number line to solve each of the following. So now we do need to use a number line. Write a subtraction expression that models your solution, and then write a complete sentence stating your answer. Tom left school and walked 5 blocks east. Okay. Charlie walked the same distance west. How far apart are the two friends? Okay, well, I just always think of never eat sour worms for direction. East and west are in the opposite directions, okay? So one walks this way and the other walks this way, and we can assume that they both start at that same point in the middle. Okay, so let's say that Tom walks 5 blocks east. So let's say that I'm going to start here, and we're just going to label that as 0. So Tom walked east, so we end up at 5. Charlie walked the same distance west. So I'm going to say that this is Tom, and I'm going to say that this is Charlie. Okay, Charlie would be over here at -5. Well, we can kind of easily see with our little picture how far the two are apart. If they both started at this spot, one walked 5 this direction and one walked 5 this direction, well, they're going to be 10 apart from each other. Okay, so they're going to be 10 apart from each other. And we can also write an expression for this. Let's just say that Tom, we need to label either this 5 or this -5 as our home. Let's just label that this is our home because we're really just trying to find the difference between the 2 points. We could do it either way. We could say Tom is our home. So if our home is Tom, that means that 5 needs to be the first number. And I'm subtracting -5 from that. Okay. And it wouldn't actually make sense to be a -10 miles apart. It would only make sense to be a positive number of miles apart. So how far apart are the 2 friends? We can write in a sentence, the 2 friends are 10 miles apart. There would be our sentence for this problem. And obviously you'd probably write it a bit neater, but I kind of ran out of room here. So that is 2.1D. We will be completing 2.1D homework in class. So please don't forget to fill out the Google form with the questions about this lesson and then some more practice problems for you.